Hello and welcome to my channel, iWinDeluxe Gaming. The newest 5-star character in Honkai Star Rail, Numby, has just been released. In this video, we'll go over everything you need to know about the Numby dispenser, Topaz. If you're ready to go into debt, pulling for our favorite debt collector, Numby, well, you get a nice bonus, Topaz, completely for free. Numby is an attack scaling piggy who trots the path of the hunt, and is of the fire element, which is kind of morbid given what we do to pigs with fire. Anyway, we'll be going over our delicious Numby's skills, technical info, relics, light cones, teams, Eidolons, and finally, my opinion on Numby at the end of the video. So Topaz and Numby is an interesting character, and in my opinion, perhaps the most complex character we've gotten to date. And instead of starting with the usual basic attacks, we're actually going to start with her skill. Difficulty paying. Difficulty paying does a lot of stuff, with the first being that when you enter a battle, a random enemy will be automatically marked with the proof of debt. This marked enemy gains 50% vulnerability to follow-up attack damage at trace level 10. Using her skill allows her to switch which target has proof of debt on them. Topaz will also yeet Numby at the enemy, dealing 150% attack scaling damage to the target. It costs 1 skill point, and very importantly, it counts as follow-up attack damage. One enemy will always be marked by the proof of debt, so if an enemy that was marked dies, a different enemy will be immediately marked. This next warps her to her talent, Trotter Market. Trotter Market adds Numby as an auto-attacking summon to your team, where it appears in the turn order. Numby has 80 speed by default, and when it's Numby's turn, Numby will attack the enemy marked by the aforementioned proof of debt. Although Numby is quite slow with only 80 speed, you can speed up Numby significantly by simply hitting the enemy that's marked with proof of debt with any follow-up attack. For example, in this clip, Numby appears to attack twice in a row, but the first attack actually came from Topaz's skill, and the second Numby attack came from Topaz's talent. And now we can finally talk about Topaz's basic attack, Deficit. Deficit counts as a follow-up attack, and if you shoot the enemy that's marked by proof of debt, this will advance forward Numby by 50%, making this a very unique and also surprisingly not useless basic attack. And up next for our favorite debt collector, we have her ultimate, Turn a Profit. After some mega rises to pig-related stonks, Numby is enhanced and enters Windfall Bonanza State. While in Windfall Bonanza State, Numby gains 150% additional attack scaling multiplier at trace level 10, which brings its total multiplier to 300% when you add either the skills multiplier or the talents multiplier to this additional ultimate multiplier. On top of that, Numby gets 25% additional crit damage. Numby has 2 charges of Windfall Bonanza State, indicated by these icons here, and each time Numby attacks while in Windfall Bonanza State will provide Topaz an additional 10 energy. And most importantly, Numby will advance forward by 50% as long as any attack from your entire team hits the enemy marked by proof of debt, so you don't need to rely on just follow-up attacks to speed up Numby. And before we trot over to the nitty-gritty of the mechanics behind her kit, let's quickly talk about her technique as well, Explicit Subsidy. For combat purposes, the first time Numby attacks, Topaz will gain 60 additional energy. This will allow Topaz to use her ultimate after her first turn in the Forgotten Hall. You also can get up to 10,000 additional credits every day. However, from my observations, you get about 100 to 500 credits per battle, which will take quite a long time and a lot of technique points to hit that 10k credit cap. And that's not all, you'll even get additional cosmic fragments with a small chance to obtain a curio in the simulated universe when you battle. As for talent priority, I would level her talent, skill, and ultimate pretty much equally. I'd also level up her basic attack since they're cheaper to level and also not useless. Anyway, now that we've gone over the basics, let's talk about the nitty gritty for those of you nerds like me that are out there. Yes, I had to painstakingly test all these scenarios as well as to math it out precisely to provide you with this information. Anyway, everything in Topaz's kit counts as follow-up attack damage. Her passive, which adds 15% additional damage versus fire weak enemy, counts towards the fire damage / bonus damage multiplier. Her basic attack also counts as basic attack damage, and her skill also counts as skill damage. However, her ultimate enhanced Numby, aka Windfall Bonanza Numby, doesn't count as ultimate damage. For example, if you use her skill while Numby is enhanced with Windfall Bonanza, it still counts as skill damage, not ultimate damage. And unlike certain gigantic lightning Susanos, Numby will still attack while Topaz is imprisoned. Here are her break values and energy values as well. There are a couple things to note here. Numby's auto attacks via Topaz's talents don't provide any energy. However, by using her ultimate, thanks to her major trace which provides 10 energy each time Numby attacks while in Windfall Bonanza state, you basically get 25 energy refunded from her ultimate. But now it's time to talk about another tricky part of Topaz's kit, her rotations. Topaz has two main playstyles that I want to talk about. The first is a hyper carry playstyle, and the second is as a sub DPS. For her hyper carry playstyle, you'll want to spam her skill, and casting her ultimate and skill 3 times leads to you having 115 energy. This means that if you kill 2 enemies or get hit a couple of times, you'll get her ultimate in just 3 turns. And the final general tip for Topaz is to use her ultimate after her turn. This will allow her allies to hit the marked enemy, thus giving Numby free turns that Numby would not have otherwise gotten. On average per rotation, Hypercarry Topaz will use her skill 3 times, her talent 2 to 3 times, and have 2 Bonanza Numby activations via her talent from her allies. In total, doing about 1350 to 1500% attack scaling multiplier in a single rotation. The second playstyle is more of a support / sub DPS role, supporting characters like Jingyuan or Clara. When paired with a skill point hungry character like Jingyuan, Topaz should focus on spamming her normal attacks on marked enemies and just use her skill intermittently in order to switch which target is marked. Next, we're going to talk about her stats and relics. For her main stats, overall I recommend the standard DPS build, which is a crit body, speed boots, fire damage sphere, and attack percent rope. You can swap out her fire damage sphere for an attack percent sphere, especially if it has better substats. An amazing trait for Topaz is that simply having speed boots pushes her over the crucial 134 speed breakpoint. As for other options, well, I did do the calculations, but I don't really recommend other main stats. Up next are substats, which, well, it's the usual get as many crit substats as possible, although since she does scale very well off attack percent, you should get those as well. Speed is a nice bonus even if you've already hit the 134 speed threshold, but it's far from being as good as it is on most other characters. Now, as for her 4-piece relic options, Topaz is surprisingly limited. There isn't a great set for her right now, with overall the current combination I recommend being the 2-piece Musketeers plus 2-piece Firesmiths. This combination just provides some stats which increases her damage by around 10.7%. Another option is the 4-piece Musketeers, providing even more speed, although again Topaz is already over the 134 speed breakpoint without the 4-piece Musketeer speed buff, and it also provides a small buff to her basic attack. I did the math for some other sets and unfortunately I don't really recommend any of them, but you can use them in the interim. Personally, I would wait for an actually good set to be released for follow-up attack characters, because right now no such set exists in the game. As for her 2-piece ball and rope combinations, the inert Salsado is the clear winner here, providing a universal damage buff to her entire kit. However, the Space Sealing Station is at a close second place, but provides the slightly less valuable attack percent instead of crit and bonus damage. Rudolent Arena is overall the 3rd best option, helping boost her skill Numby and basic attack. And up next we have our favorite Gemstones and Pork's Light Cones. Overall, her signature light cone is her best option. It has the added benefit of providing other follow-up attack characters a nice bit of crit damage on the target that Topaz hits, an easy 5 slime rating. Her next best option is either a Super Imposition 5 cruising on the Stellar Sea, or a Super Imposition 5 Swordplay. Swordplay is uniquely good on Topaz because she'll be at 5 stacks in a single use of her skill or talent. But the cruising on the Stellar Sea has a higher damage ceiling, but also a much lower damage floor. Either way, either options are good, especially if you have refinements on the Swordplay light cone. As for the other light cones, well, here's the full chart, but I personally don't recommend any of them over the very free-to-play friendly cruising on the Stellar Sea. And finally, we have one of the most important parts of any of these videos, her teams. Starting with a hyper carry team. Honestly, any of the top tier support characters like Tingyuan, Asta, Bronya, Silverwolf, Yukong all work well with her. However, I do think that Tingyuan and Asta stand out more so than the others. Asta is uniquely suitable to support Topaz since she provides a fire damage bonus and can equip the 4-star light cone Planetary Rendezvous, which further buffs Topaz's fire damage. Anyway, mixing and matching whatever Harmony/Nihility characters you have will work well with Hypercarry Topaz. As for the sustain slots, I personally found that a sustain character with an ultimate that deals damage is very nice to have, as it provides your team more opportunities to activate Ultimate Numby's 50% advance forward. And currently, those sustain characters that do damage with their ultimates are Fu Xuan and Wo Cha. But of course, pretty much any sustain will work just fine. March 7th is an interesting option who also provides some follow-up attacks, but is honestly difficult to slot her in unless you're comfortable using her as your solo sustain. Topaz is also very suitable as a sub-DPS role to support another follow-up character like Clara or Jingyuan. Then just pick a proper support for said main DPS that Topaz is supporting and life will be good. For example, I found this team of Clara, Topaz, and Asta to actually buff both Clara and Topaz, plus Fu Xuan really good to use, especially against physical weak enemies that aren't weak to fire. Another good duo DPS team, especially versus fire weak enemies, is Himiko, Topaz, Asta, and a sustain. These three will break fire like crazy, and both Himiko and Topaz can output some serious follow-up attack damage. Anyway, as you can see, you can pretty much just mix and match Topaz's teammates, either centered around her own hyper carry damage or other follow-up attack damage focused characters, and you'll have a decent time. Now for those of you that bought Apple stock 30 years ago, here's a very quick overview of her Eidolons. Eidolon 1 is a great buff to all follow-up attack damage. Her Eidolon 2 will allow her to consistently 3-turn ultimate without getting kills or getting hit. Eidolon 4 will help Topaz attack more frequently, and finally Eidolon 6 will give an additional Bonanza charge, as well as just help her do more damage. So yeah, now let's talk about my personal opinion on Topaz and Numby. Topaz definitely feels like she needs more work and effort to make work than the previous 3 DPS characters, but she still feels reasonably strong. Now with that being said, I do feel like she feels notably weaker as a hyper carry than Jingliu or Dan Heng, but that is a really high bar at the moment. While she doesn't feel ridiculously strong, she also doesn't feel weak, especially with proper ultimate Numby turn management. But of course, that ties into the other issue with her, is that you need proper ultimate Numby turn management, which can be a bit cumbersome. Either way, Topaz is a surprisingly flexible character, being playable as a main DPS or as a skill point positive sub-DPS character supporting other follow-up attacking characters. This actually does give her a potentially bright future, especially if additional 5-star featured follow-up attack characters are added to Honkai Star Rail. Now, I did want to add that Numby is by far the best overworld exploration character, as this little piggy will definitely find all the treasures in a very generous radius around you. Let me know what you think about Numby and its pet Topaz down in the comments below. As always, I appreciate every single one of you. This is I Want to Lose, signing out.